Well, it's an honor to have Todd Golbus with Carolina Signs and Wonders, the CEO and founder, on this episode of our Business Spotlight series. Todd, thanks for taking the time to join us on this episode.
Happy to be here. Thanks for having me.
It's an honor. So, if you would just start by giving us a bit of insight, signs and wonders, I can make some assumptions, but give us some detail about the background of your business, where you're located, and what problem you solve for your clients.
Sure. So my wife Jackie and I formed this company right before the pandemic in February of 2020. We decided to go out on our own. I'd been in corporate America for 30 plus years, and our youngest was about to go off to college. And we sort of crossed paths with the sign industry, and it looked like a good fit. I love business, love working with my hands, and Jackie's always liked the creative side. So it seemed like something we wanted to jump into. We just didn't realize it was happening at the beginning of sort of the world shutting down as we knew it.
And, as you think about navigating that and basically launching a new endeavor, to come from there to where you are now, maybe just a little bit of, kind of a look through the window at that journey in brief, as far as where you started and where you are now, maybe just as far as size, number of employees, volume.
Sure. I mean, back in 2020, we started with me and Jackie and a part-time sign maker, and, knew that we wanted to do more commercial business, that we weren't looking for a retail store. We weren't looking for just vinyl. We knew that Charlotte's business and the growth of their business would be able to support a good sign company. So as we had the opportunity to do bigger and bigger projects, we took them on. We're now almost 5 years in, or just hit 5 years in, and we're up to 21 employees. And our focus is the large, complex sign project from beginning to end. So we do everything from helping our customers with design or what they want to get across or what they want to accomplish, all the way through permitting, fabrication, install. We do our own electrical work. We do our own fabrication work. We're in our third building now. We needed to continually upgrade the capability and the square footage of the facilities we're in.
And as you think about that growth, first off, congratulations. 5
Thank you.
years, key milestone. A lot of entrepreneurs, small business owners, especially with new concepts, don't make it past. And those that do make it past are oftentimes in a survival mode. So to be in third location, to have come through the pandemic when things were just unprecedented, and you think about maybe some pillars to that success as you look back, just a brief look in the rear view. What's one thing or one or two things that come to mind, Todd, that has been fundamental and remains foundational to your business and the growth that you're experiencing?
So I would sort of lean on two things. One is I think my wife and I offset each other very well. So she does a good job of keeping me in my lane. And she says that, often when, I get excited about something and it's, hey, is that core to our business? Is that something that we're good at? Are we trying to do something that's not in our lane or not? So that's been helpful to keep us grounded. The second thing is, it really has been about the people. We've had people walk in and out our door at times that I'm not sure we would have hoped for that timing, but it was perfect timing. It was the right person coming in to give us new capability to help us. And, frankly, at some point we'd outgrown some people, or people leaving forced us to do something different, sometimes to take a leap that we'd been hesitant to making a leap. So the people coming and going has definitely been what has allowed us and pushed us for our growth.
So people have been a key to that success. You've added team members along the way. As you've shaped a larger organization with more moving pieces and more complexity, how has the team structure changed with your leadership and how you've stacked your team members, your players up? How has that changed as you've become more sophisticated, not just more complicated, but leveraged your people and your processes more? What does that lead team look like now is a better question.
Yeah, and it has changed a number of times. And as I've talked to other owners or people that have businesses that are larger than us, it's been made apparent that, sometimes you've got somebody that is key to help you, to grow to 1 million, but they're not the right one to help you go from 1 million to 2 million. It's different skills, it's different people. And we've also seen people struggle as we have changed or grown, that they don't want that growth leap, and they're resistant to new processes, they're resistant to changes. When we implemented a management team, we had people that at some point everybody reported to Jackie and me, and that was fine when we were small, but as we got bigger, we had to implement a layer. Coming out of corporate America, I'm definitely trying to keep the company lean, trying to learn on some of the challenges that I saw in very large companies. So we did want to remain lean and nimble, but we couldn't have everybody report to us. And we did have some people struggled with the idea of, well, I used to report to Todd and now I don't. I saw a little bit of that in corporate America, but it was so much more pronounced here. Comments like, well, I don't work for you, I work for Todd or Jackie. Well, as the company got larger, we can't keep our finger on everything. So we do need a leadership team. And over the last 2 years, we really focused on building a leadership team. The first business we sort of broke out as a standalone business unit was our install. We hired somebody to run our install group. He's the most tenured person on our leadership team, and he's done a great job. And it's wonderful to see somebody take what I did or what I had formed and really take it to the next level by the focus that Kevin's been able to put on our install group. Their capability, their output, their quality, their scheduling is so much better. The frustration that our guys have is so much lower than when they were working for me. Kevin's much more prepared. He's much more focused. And that took a great deal off of my plate. And so, when we take a step back, it was just a win-win for the employees, for our customers, for, Jackie and I personally, and also for the company. So, we followed suit across our sales organization. So we brought Greg in, who has owned his own sign company in the past, doesn't want to own a sign company anymore, but super knowledgeable, understands, all of the mechanics and the components, and brings a sort of just a calm approach to the office, which we like. And Greg has taken over, our sales and admin group. And then the newest area that we've broken out is our production and fabrication area. So everything from vinyl to paint to welding to laser and routing to electrical wiring. Ashley runs that area and has been building her team, and we're starting to see that be able to be a standalone group that's running pretty effectively.
You said quite a bit in there that's really pretty powerful. So I do want to take the time to kind of zoom in on a couple of things there. One of which was about it was Kevin with the install team. Is that right?
Yep.
And so you made a comment about, and I'm going to use my own phrasing here, but you basically had taken it as far as your abilities had allowed you to, and by bringing on someone with more of a focus on that specific niche, but also elevating their strengths, he took it even beyond where you had envisioned it being. Is that a fair summary of what you said there?
Oh, extremely. I mean, one is Kevin brings a set of skills that I don't have. He'd been an installer for, decades, so he really knew that industry. I am still learning. He's run trucks for years. I know how to use all of our trucks. I've, invested in them and researched them, but he's lived with them. He's got a better focus on detail, specifically around install. And then also he brings focus. I was, spread very thin across trying to do sales to keep the engine running, trying to run the
Todd, to
company.
interject a question there, if you knew what you knew now, would you have brought any of those leaders on sooner into your business?
We've discussed an awful lot. Hindsight's 2020, and we've talked about
That's
that
why
a
I
lot.
ask now, right?
Yeah,
And
a
here's the
lot of
reason
the
I ask. I'm working with a number of clients that are working to expand their team, and there's always this formula to evaluate the value and the potential gains that that role adds, as well as the efficiencies it brings. But there's also a cost consideration. And so, really, what I'm getting at is any insights that you can give our listeners to kind of how to go about that, when to bring someone. And you just illustrated the point that we make time and time again, is that you can't grow beyond your own knowledge or capacity. So if you have to hunt, clean, cook, and eat everything, when you're eating, you're not hunting.
right.
So help me pull that point home, because I don't think I'm doing a great job of it.
No, and that's super applicable to what we dealt with. Because when I go back to when we were a very small shop, if I would spend a day in the field, about a week or week and a half later, we would feel it because that was a day I wasn't working, the phones or sales, and we'd see, something low because,
It's a
frankly, I
lost
wasn't.
opportunity because you
Yeah,
can't be in two places at one time.
exactly. But there definitely is a sweet spot. We couldn't have afforded Kevin. We didn't have the work for Kevin to do, 2 or 3 years ago. I think as we look back, we probably could have brought him on 3 or 4 or maybe even 6 months earlier. But frankly, we had tried. We had hired a previous person in his role. That person didn't work out. The jump from doer to manager in our industry is difficult. Kevin again has that experience, and you have to, but he can't be an installer anymore. He has to be an install manager now. The first person that we brought on, who we had hopes to do that, couldn't make the leap to put in processes, to have checklists, to do the things that needed to be done as a manager.
And we see that time and time again, where someone that's a high performer at an individual level gets promoted to a manager, but doesn't
Yep.
make that transition well for a number of reasons beyond the time we have here together. But I think doing that leadership assessment to be able to understand the strengths and the shortcomings of those individuals to equip them for success in that leadership role. And there's probably some time you had to stay close to that, at least closer than you are now, just to give a warm handoff so that baton doesn't get dropped on the track.
Yeah, and that's it's a lot deeper than what you just said. There's a lot more to that. Because I have a lot of the history. When Kevin came, we had 2 bucket trucks. We now have 3. I had the history with them, so I knew sort of the way that, I don't want to say the way they work because he understands that, but I know the maintenance issues that we've had in the past. I know what had been done to it. So, if something was going wrong, I might have more data points than he had.
Hands on.
Right, just because of that experience. But, again, he'd been doing it so much longer as he came up to speed. And frankly, it took me a while to be able to communicate to him of everything I expected, because I handed him something and said, look, this is not running the way that I want it to. This is what I want it to be like. But it's sort of hard to help him envision what I had wanted, and for him to again take over something from the boss, but then change everything. And I did want him to change it, I'm going to say pretty substantially, because we had capped out. We'd capped out on people. We'd capped out on our capability and our capacity. So it was a little bit different in what he needed to do.
When you first started the business with Jackie, did you have a vision of a team of the size, even if you couldn't quite grasp it and it wasn't tangible? Did you have kind of a mind's eye picture of having a team of the size you have now and being able to have an influence on them and their lives and their families? Or has this all kind of gotten bigger than you first thought it could be?
I'm going to say not at all. Right. So the picture that we had is so different than reality. And we were focused on other things. So I never thought about how big I wanted the company from an employee standpoint. We knew from a revenue standpoint about some of our goals. We blew our goals out of the water. They were almost unrealistically low from what we'd been able to do. Again, we hadn't expected that. I knew that I needed to have a company that was big enough that we could handle, bumps and challenges across the way. I had to take a step back from corporate America to fight cancer years ago. So I knew that if the company only revolves around me, there's a problem.
It's not a model for
Right.
success. That's right. We define a business as a commercially profitable enterprise that works without you as the owner, or at least has the option to, could work without you. And, James Clear says that businesses don't fall to the level of their goals. They don't rise to the level of the goals. They fall to the level of the systems. And I think you've talked a lot about that, obviously having your systems in place and coming out of corporate America like myself, I think probably started with that vision of the power of a team and the importance of the individual, and that the sum of the parts is better than those individuals, and staying true over courses of years to what caliber of individual you were looking for, what quality of product you were not willing to compromise around, did lay the foundation for bringing in the caliber of talent that you now have and have been able. So I think that vision was there, but to your point, sometimes it's not quite as clear and we can't necessarily trace it back, but great to hear where you've headed. Actually, if I'm not mistaken, just recently made a trip and received some recognition in the entrepreneurial space for that. Share about that with us.
Yeah, so Jackie and I are college sweethearts. We met at Miami University in Ohio. We're both from Ohio. Miami has a great entrepreneurial educational program that we've participated in and helped them out for a little bit. They started something they call their Red Hawk 50. So Red Hawk is the mascot of the school, and they have looked to identify their 50 fastest growing companies that were formed by Miami alumni. This was their second year, and I think there were 315 companies that participated. We were asked to participate as well, and we took the third place prize for fastest growing company. So the competition was pretty fierce. I've got a lot of respect for the other folks that had built some wonderful companies. And frankly, Jackie and I were super surprised that we ranked as high as we did with that group.
Oh, thanks for sharing that. That's just phenomenal. And I'm excited to hear about your growth. Obviously, here at Action Coach Lake Norman, we're focused on building strong community and the businesses that fuel it here in the greater Charlotte and Lake Norman area. If you have needs for commercial signage or branding, I guess, in general, and a strategy that communicates your business purpose and mission to your ideal client, would definitely recommend you getting in touch with Todd over at Carolina Signs and Wonders, a leader in that space here in our area. If you've benefited from the conversation and some insights around the value of having a clear strategy and the power of a team, would welcome any outreach to converse about that as you start a new business venture or look to scale. But most of all, Todd, I want to say thank you again for your time. It is valuable to us, and have enjoyed having you on this session of our Business Spotlight series.
Matt, definitely my pleasure, and I appreciate being asked to join.
Talk to you soon, and keep it going out there.